Hi again, everyone. I didn't get all your names, so and it's awful because my name is unique in a sense that you will always remember me. I think, especially about my car. I'll never leave that down. I swear it healed itself. Okay, I should have taken a longer video. Betroy, Chippa, I know Chip, Lala, Cynthia.
Oh, my name is Nadira, which means unique.
Oh yeah.
Our names are unique.
Oh, nice. Okay, Nadira. And nice to meet you. Yeah.
My name is Jessica.
Jessica, hi. And the Kens. The one named people, right? Here. Ken, right. Yeah. Ken. Isaac Kim. Correct? Yeah, Kim. And next to Ken is Emily, hi, and Adi, hi, and Yanti, hi, Yanti, you wrote me, okay. Yes, yeah, okay. I can see your, I look at your profile, so I don't, in case I bump into you, tidak malu lah, Yanti, okay. Yes? Tasha. Because there's a Natasha somewhere else, right? She's not here, okay, all right. Chip, I know, and sorry, yes, yeah. Juliet. Okay, hi, Juliet, and Faz, and Phoebe, and
I'm related to Lala and Cynthia. Maybe that will.
we'll remember you forever then. And your name is Katrina. CCL, right? CCL. K. Oh, you're a K. Oh. Yeah, Katrina. Okay. And wow, that now I can pack my bags and tail between my legs. Let's toss a coin. How do you feel today? Sinundu. Okay, Sinundu Noel.
What does it mean?
Sinundu?
Wonderful.
So if you translate it both to English, it's Christmas gift. I don't.
Were you born on Christmas Day? Close to? No, not even close.
Not even. It's too much.
Okay, I was born 4 days later. My mom was very upset because she went to church in a big baju. She was already buying her small outfit. 29th of December, I popped out. So there you go. Have I met everyone? Said hello to everyone? Yes, yeah? Okay. So again, thank you for this space. I now look at the time, 10:30. I have till 11? No, 11:30. How much time? 11:30. Okay. So.
Is that okay with questions?
Oh yes, yeah. So we could leave questions later, or you want it in the middle?
However you like.
Well, I don't have too many slides. I have a hodgepodge of pictures, campur. And to be honest, I wanted it that way. I wanted it without an introduction, without a content, a body, and no conclusion. Why? Because we're decolonizing knowledge today.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, yes, come on, we're decolonizing knowledge today, right? Whoa. all throughout my young life, I look like this, right? And it's a story where I'm maybe 6 years old, and my mom, we live in Taman Fortuna, for those who are from Kota Kinabalu. That's after hospital. So there was an old Chinese grocery shop, not old. Every housing area has a Chinese shop, grocery, has to be grocery. And this family from China only speaks Mandarin. And I would go and buy, as your mom would, go and buy gula. She speak to me in Kadazan. Oh, may mumahi gula. At tapong. pork maling or whatever is that, this spam, luncheon meat. So one day I go and she wouldn't let me buy it until I spoke in Chinese. And I said, I don't speak Mandarin. I don't know how to speak. And she was just arguing with her son. This something like Chinese children today, they don't speak Chinese. This is in the 70s, right? They don't speak blah, 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 blah. So I was like, crying with my one packet of sugar. And my mom's waiting in the car. She goes in, what's wrong? What's taking you so long? So very vividly, I remember all these things about belonging and the idea of being right, being moral, or being following what people are saying, especially in school. So we will come to that because today is about this whole idea of where we got our knowledge from. So if we start with that whole idea of knowledge, is that if we want to take away ourselves from something that opposed us or oppressed us, we really then have to find other forms of knowledge. If that one took prominence, then we now try to sort of assert our place in that. And to do that is to look at those forms of knowledge around us, which are already there. Local knowledge. No one needs to tell you how to frame your understanding of where the mountain is, kan? Do we need a map to show us, oh, take this road, begini? What about that road yang dekat sikit? Oh, itu tidak bukan di dalam map. Jadi tidak boleh lah. But why not follow what the locals are using, kan? Maybe easier to get there. Maybe you see more things. The other one is indigenous knowledge. And this is specified to maybe whom we call indigenous people. But the truth is, through my own study of indigenous people in Sabah, is contested too, this category. Are you really indigenous? Who's indigenous? Can you claim to be indigenous? Sometimes indigenous is spelled small case I and capital I. Which one do you use? Which one do you identify with? Is also questionable. So that comes with that kind of knowledge. So whose knowledge are you using? Whether this political stuff can be peeled back, that's another story. But definitely when we say indigenous knowledge, it belongs to a group of people that actually need to use that, or else they feel very, very ill in themselves. So these are the kinds of truths that I have been working with now in my own life, professionally and as a human being walking this earth. Segue, story time sikit. I was working with Kadazan Dusun Language Foundation after my bachelor's, which I did in Michigan State University. I studied child development, and when I came back, I was very shocked, surprised and shocked. Not anymore nowadays, but that the government of Malaysia had once again scrapped preschool curriculum. In the 1990s, they were talking about it. And I was then a trainee at Maktab Gaya. I was a teacher. I taught at St. Francis Secondary School in the early 90s. And I said, I would like to further my study. I've done this certificate now. And, can I turn this into an undergraduate degree? And I wanted to do child development, especially since the Maktab Gaya had built a row of beautiful laboratory preschools. They said they're going to do it. So I go and train, I come back, and it's all gone. They never started. And if I talk to NGO like PACOS, I'm sure some of you know this NGO PACOS, that's how they also went through upheaval. They were not welcomed in that space of preschool education and so on. Anyway, that's another story. But it relates to us here, how we try to keep digging into knowledge other than the one that we were forced to get to know in school. And the kind of knowledge that we know from young to even old now, even on Monday when I went to give that talk at the ethnic identity seminar, and I just thought to myself, why did we make everyone sit down and listen to us boring people talk? Huh? Four people talk and then Q&A and then talk and then Q&A. I just thought, next time, if you want to come for this, everyone has to give a question when they register. How about that? And I will answer your questions as we go. And then if we have not answered your question, you tell us instead of, dishing out the info and not giving equal space for people to talk. As a teacher, I find that we get to know about colonized knowledge or knowledge in school. It's just so prevalent because we have to do, what is this debatable one, what is observable second, what is traceable. If you can trace it, then are you talking about, what are you talking about? We don't see the evidence of. Here's some photos, right? Very common. It used to be maybe, rows and rows and rows. You sit down formally. And then it started to change over the years. You sit in a group. If any of you went to Malaysian schools, did you have this experience? I never had that experience. Sitting, you had, Nadira, where you could. Was it okay to look at the teacher sideways? I find it a bit difficult juga kan, if you're sitting there and then you have to angle your body.
No, it was fine. Actually, I don't know why, but energetically it felt safe to me that I can face my classmates.
All right, yeah. So the dynamics at least changed, yeah?
The power dynamics.
Yeah, that's great. And then of course you had, maybe this is for the cameras lah, I feel, huh? Nice photo op. Look busy and look, loving and caring as a teacher. And then, the kids over there. Here's one that might go into the decolonized version. Although I put one there because I thought this was not for the photo op guys. That they look so, I don't know what they look like, but they look so sad, those two, in fact. They look very typical, actually. They look like my kid, with that age. Yeah, just go to school here, have a sandwich. Here are the other two photos that look a little bit more, less classroom feel. Nonetheless, it's a class. You do have to gather them and then give information to them and so on. Whichever the format of these various countries, definitely something we can think about exploring more and more for our setting. And when you work with communities or wherever you do your work or get the information, I come to this point where if I want to partition, okay, that knowledge is colonized and this one is decolonized, I have a feeling that we're somewhere in between. We keep going here or there. I trained as a linguist. I definitely appreciate spectrograms. You have a software that analyzes your speech. And I can track where the consonants are and the vowels. Some of you are sleeping, maybe, boring. But for me, it's so exciting. It's like, oh, I love this. I can see the shadows and the gradient, right? So if you tell me, no, you cannot use that colonized thing, you have to think of language in a different way, how other people see it. I say, yeah, I can go there too, but don't let me drop this. And I do like that. So I feel like I'm always traveling in here. What I have today, though, is this very deep, profound respect for knowledge, because I know that it relates, it can bounce off, it oscillates. It's not just like what I had on Monday, just go on stage, speak, and then leave the stage when you're called Q&A. And then we can give to each other, and you can give your knowledge to me and to other sentient beings. When you do the padi project, do you talk to the padi, Chip? Ever? Kau bincang dengan si padi? Pernah ka? Mengaku saja kalau pernah. Pernah juga kan? Macam ada mau cakap sikit, baka give up Boston lah, something. You hold something that is alive in you. around you. Do you all work with animals, some of you? What kind of animals do you work with? Herd or elephants? There you go. Yeah. Who is an elephantologist in our midst? Anyone? There's somebody from conservation. Oh, yeah. So, like speaking to elephants, I feel like they know us as well and speak to us. And how you can trap and capture that knowledge from a Western point of view is zero, huh? You don't do that. But from a local or indigenous point of view, you can so do that. Why not? Yeah, the spirituality connection as well. If you have Indian tourists going to Kinabatangan and going on the river for the riverine cruise, when the buffaloes come out, the first thing they do is kneel and bow. Yeah, right in the boat. So you have to be present juga in front of what they're experiencing, their knowledge, their form of communication with the sentient beings. The other one is, and I'm sharing from myself as well, is like this feeling of being conscious all the time, self-conscious. I'm more conscious than ever as I grow older, especially in this space. Like thinking, reflecting, waking up, sleeping, it just filters through me, and I'm very grateful. I couldn't say I've never been like that, but because there's such a progression, a slow one, that I could sense that today as I grow older. And of course, then when I say grow your humanity, I actually wanted to draw you a picture like here's a colonizer and here's your knowledge, and you have to insert yourself. Definitely, you have to push yourself in your own world. When I taught once to students in Canberra when I was studying for my PhD, University of Canberra, I was a tutor for contemporary Indigenous issues, Aboriginal Australian and Torres Strait Islander issues. And most of my students are mainstream Australians, in quote unquote, orang putih, campur-campur, but they're not black, they're not Aboriginal Australians. So I'm trying to tell them, I'm trying to explain to them, what is Indigenous spirituality? And I said, how do I do this? It's so difficult because they're just looking at me like the hardest thing to understand about you people is what you believe in. We just don't get it. We don't know. We can't, we don't know how to outline your people's beliefs and so on. So I just said to them, it's like this. It's like, you just walk into it. I said, and it's there. And they're just looking at me. And I said, just imagine here I am and here's this realm, I said. So when I call it, it's there. And I just walk into it. And I just keep doing that action in the classroom. And I hope it worked that day because I just don't know how to. And it's one of the difficulties of Indigenous researchers is being able to explain in writing how we know what we know about how the world works and why. Betul ka, Chip? Chip, where are you from? Si lupatan niya. Sini, Lapasan. Bukan Tinuhan lang, Lapasan. Sebelah Jakan, yeah. But most of the time, if you're asked, well, how do you know? Why do the Kadasans do this? Why do the Dusans do that? And if outsiders are asking, they find your explanation very, macam magunsamang. Kato ka magunsamang. Magunsamang for Kadasan is making up stories. Wishy-washy, making up stories like that. Mambo jumbo. Yeah. And I had a friend recently who's trying to write a report on the rituals or spiritual context and to write this in English, and it's needed by somebody. I don't know what project she's in. So she goes, I'm writing, and I go, I don't know how to explain that part. So what do you do? I said, I put in a big bracket, I don't know, this part is unexplainable. It cannot be explained. And then I said, and how many times you repeat this? Very often. I said, mati la ka, ko tidak ka nabayar sa dani project ko. Unexplainable. Oh gosh, do you have a home? Oh, now you're telling them. Yeah. So, how? And then we both laugh. And then when we talk, we were talking a context of Rachel who was driving back from field work, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, that Rachel. And then she looked at me. The unexplainable. I said, yeah, totally cannot explain. But she sort of knew what I was trying to say that day when I was narrating about something that happened. And then, oh, unexplainable. Okay, I understand. Okay, the other one about decolonizing knowledge as you go, especially with the word decoloniality, which just simply means it's never ending, it's still among us, right? Is to allow diversity in knowledges. I think that's the key word too. It's plural. It's just so many knowledge types, and especially from elders, you get tons and tons, different kinds as well. Sometimes humorous, sometimes it's unexplainable type knowledge. And you have to sit there for a long time and then come back to it again. Huh? But there's this part too about contradiction. And as anthropologists, that's my other training, is that people often say what they don't do, and they often do what they don't say. So the most of the part about knowledge, I feel, especially if I do my own research, is observing people, being with them, participating and observing. And it takes days, if not weeks, months, if not years. So among us anthropologists, we have this very snob, how many months or years have she, in the field, like only 1 year, or what is that? Yeah, I was there for 5 years or something like that. I know these people through and through, or something like that. So it takes a while, and that comes to my point later. But let me show a few photos more about knowledges, right? How do you explain this? The unexplainable. So this is one when anthropologists proposed a game to these kids. This is from South Africa. And he made a basket of fruit as the reward. So all of them refused to take part in the game because they said, if only one of us can get the whole thing, how can all of us be happy? We're making others all sad. There is then that question of the three Kens. The one people with, that was a gift actually for this discussion, because Ubuntu in Zulu is really, how do you become one when you're all the same, right? Because we perceive all our differences, but this is really about how to be human, how to take care of each other. So if we take care of ourselves, if we take care of others, automatically we're taking care of ourselves, because we are the others as well. And I think the knowledges that is not westernized tend to operate that way. They tend to go ask people, human, including the other sentient beings, the animals around us, the forest, and so on. And that to me is something that we should go deeper into, because concepts like this, not packaged from the Western world, is really profound, very deep, and hard to explain in English as well, except for when you really go to the source and get all of this. So I then go to this point of mine, which I raised earlier, is it has taken me time. And I never went on it like a race. Like the minute I knew there was something called indigenous, if I did not work in, NGO, I would be far removed from it now. I would be perhaps one of the cityfied urban Kadazan person saying, indigenous, what is that? That is not for me. Ito, mungkin orang kampung-kampung lah boleh. They still need it. They still are, marginalized, oppressed. Me, I have found my way. I'm cosmopolitan. I speak Chinese. My kids also I went to Australia, so I don't need it. Something like that. But some of my informants do talk like that. But for me, because some way, the universe said, kau kerja lah di sini kan? So you went into it. So I become more and more conscious. And I become conscious also that I have privilege as well. Because the colonizers had a kind of knowledge and they had the privilege to put it onto us. I now have this form of knowledge, and I also have privilege that others who are still maybe colonized or who don't care about me and indigenous stuff, they also don't relate well to me again. So how do I engage in that space? That also was I won't say a dilemma with me, but there are certain times when I can clash with people. In Australia, when I was studying for my PhD, with no government scholarship, mind you, so sendiri-sendiri, very difficult with a small child. And finally, thank you to the Australian government for giving me a merit scholarship. That took me through a few years. But during that time, I had a chance to work at Reconciliation Australia, which is an NGO, a large NGO that looks at bridging the gap between mainstream Australians and Aboriginal Australians and Torres Strait Islanders. So in that space, right, you can see like I'm on the outside looking in, because this is the word they use, black. Black just means you're not white. And then when they look at me and they say, "Oh, Trixie, you should have joined our seminar. You're black like us." And then my white officers or colleagues go, "Oh, you should join us. You're one of us. You're not quite black like them." So, and I am the one out of two international staff they have. The other international person is from Sri Lanka, who only takes care of the computer, so he doesn't need to go to all this cultural training, cultural safety training, which is very, very difficult to go through because you have to listen to the genocide, the stolen generation, all the oppression that Indigenous peoples in Australia went through. And that's really hard, very hard. I end up crying, I end up running, stumbling all over the place. I end up getting people to look for me. I'm that kind of emo, so don't worry. The car only I will explain. Don't worry, I won't go to that part. So, but it takes time, is what I'm saying. And then when you get confronted with harder or more issues, people questioning, why are you doing this study? You're not that Indigenous. You're not that, oppressed. You're not that. and this is like after you've confidently delivered your thesis or something, or your practice, and you're like, yes, I'm on top of the world. And then tap. Why are you doing that? You're not that, And then who are you represent? Are you representative of us? Also, I've heard. So if you have those experiences, and then you, how should I say, take it on board, it tends to mess up with your own knowledge and decolonializing of your own knowledge, because then you'll go back to that, being affronted, being oppressed yourself. Then you take this mindset of the colonizer, which is always attempting to, win something for the day, take the spoils of war, So I have had a friend in Reconciliation Australia said to me one day, "Hey, Trixie, you wear your Indigenous identity very lightly." And I go, "Oh, is that good or bad? I also don't know." And she said, "That's okay. That's not too bad. It's not bad." Yes. And she's Aboriginal herself. But I said, "Well, I'm glad, that was one of those things I hear, that at least, you're not that Indigenous. Don't do that. You have to celebrate Chinese New Year because you're, Chinese kan. You're not that kadasan, You're not, bukan macam kami lah yang kampung. And banyak lagi lah." So I have written, I written, yes. I think through my thesis, I just write what the heck I want to write. I just take it all out there. Some people have read it and like horrified. They said, "Oh my gosh." But there's this thing about reflexivity, which is a method that we can use to unpack things. And I think younger people, a lot of you here, are doing this already in the days of Insta, FB, Insta, and what else? What's the next one? Sorry, I'm lost as well. My son will tell me more. Snapchat, I think, or something. Yes, you are also like me. Never mind. Yeah. But all of that is actually already employing reflexivity as you go. You step back, you look at yourself objectively, and then you sort of recreate again, and then you go back, and then until you get. So it is really working on yourself so that you're not this prisoner in your mind. So I would say so far I'm neither here nor there, kan? Which is completely my story in my life. I need to belong anywhere I feel, and even in Australia, my a counselor I went to said, that seems to be the story of your life, Trixie. You don't seem to belong anywhere. I said, yes, okay, thank you. But yeah, belonging is so important, and yet it is like something we don't really talk about. And I think when you decolonize knowledge, that is the first thing you should talk about. Where do we belong in this? Now that we don't want this, we want this, we want that, right? How do we go about that? So there is one thing that all the indigenous studies, indigenous researchers who study decolonization, including decolonizing of knowledge, they would pay attention to these three things: the epistemology, the ontology, and methodology, which really means epistemology. Where do you get your knowledge, right? The Western one, or the what one? You have to define that. Then your ontology is, once you choose that, then how do you package that? Do you do 1.1, 1.2, 1.3? Or is it just whatever? There's an A, sometimes there's a little I, sometimes there's a A.1, A.2. How do you package your knowledge in there? Right? Yeah. Because small story, my student now, I have a master's student studying rituals. And every time I look at her proposal, this is like maybe the 10th time we're going through the proposal round. It's horrible, really. But we all have to do it. But she said, I feel so depressed every time I have this 1.0 and then 1.1, and then I've run out of ideas. And said, why do you have to do this 1.0, 1 point whatever? Because that's how we were taught. That's how, okay, this template, I said, came from the sciences, right? The bedrock of Western knowledge. If you can't see it, you can't trace it, you can't observe it, it's not true. Right, yeah. So, and if you, especially not empirical enough, there's no research question there and objectives there and blah, blah, blah. That's not true. So I said, why don't you free yourself? Free yourself. I won't demand it from you. I'm not even asking from you this 1 point whatever. You just write. You just write as much as you can, and then we come back and then we'll see. And then I will tell you, okay, this chunk, maybe it's number 1. Maybe this one. What do you think? 1, A, or 2? We can talk about that because we'll see how you grew your knowledge. So she was so relieved, tons of bags of relief. So that's methodology, that's one. I think the other forms of methodology, right, is a lot about experimenting and that heuristic. It's not that precise. It's about trial and error. It's about, and then you go, okay, in a planning meeting, okay, guys, have we given that special touch to our program? And everyone will go, okay, Ken, what special touch are you talking about? Okay, let me explain. Why not like that? Right? Like going with somebody's gut or intuition about something. Because they may have been dreaming about it last night, wake up, itu lagi kan? So go with the flow. Instead of, okay, we need to do this according to the book. The other one that I learned in my life is the body is the experiencer. Your whole tool is experiencing as you go out doing work. Just a short segue. There's a project now I'm involved in, and it's about breastfeeding women. Not breastfeeding the women, but the women. Breastfeeding women. Sometimes the intonation is off, so I have to clarify. Breastfeeding mothers who are women. Okay.
You mean this is
another.
I'm not going into the gender fluid thing, although we can. I also teach that, but breastfeeding mothers. So I had a colleague who wants to join. And I don't know, I haven't replied him, but I'm going, how? One, he's male, he has not had kids. His wife, his wife has not had children or had breast. He has no breastfeeding context in his body, in his mind. So I don't know how he will be as an experiencer using his whole body. And he's going to meet mothers who are going to be, boob friendly. Here's my boob, here's the baby. God, how to... And here's this researcher guy trying very hard to keep eye contact at that level. Kan, macam tu. Like, because what to do? Sudah kena colonized kan? So begitulah, cannot see up below, they cannot see. The moms have to keep dragging the thin towel or whatever over their babies, and hopefully they're not suffocating down there. What a nightmare. So I haven't answered him yet, but I go to this and I believe in this one. When you do research, especially like politics, right? If you're not from the party, why would they want to talk to you? Party A and Party B. Party B punya whatever, want to go and study how Party A is. Huh? Why would they want to talk to you? That's one. The other one is, and this I had a great idea once. Maybe you can take this idea, I don't mind. Went to a social entrepreneuring workshop, still in Canberra, and I had this great idea. I said, I want to have a bus, and in that bus, I'm going to teach cooking. I love to cook. Because at that time, I came back to Sabah after 10 years away. I didn't know what I'm just going to do. Maybe buka kedai di bawah pokok, jual anthropology punya menu secret, I don't know. Decolonize knowledge, siapa mau. So I said, never mind. Mesti ada bus, I like to cook. Kita kasih satu bus kan, and it's an open kitchen, free kitchen. Kan? And while you are teaching the kids or whoever how to cook or what, or and feed them at the same time, then we do education, because I was a teacher before. Kan? So this is my grand idea to solve the intractable problem of migrant and locals in Sabah. So I presented to this group of participants, and it was headed by this lady who, from America, moved to Australia, became a banker, and got into this because one day she had a bunch of ladies from Laos, minority women who are already Australians, come to her and say, we really want to preserve our motifs. They're weaving. So how do we do that? We want a loan maybe? How do we do? We do a company, or what is it? Then she got into this whole thing. So I'm presenting in front of her. She's gone through that. And guess what the participants said? That one. What makes you think the locals want to get on the same bus with the migrant kids? Like that. What makes you think they want to eat together with that, and so on? So I just went, oh, that spoils my idea. I was going to be a chef. Now he's really spoiled it. Anyway, I didn't pursue that, but I have all the whatever materials that I graciously went through and got all the knickknacks. But that's one idea. But like I said here, it's about experiencing something. And I think that's a great way. When you want to mess up this colonized mind and knowledge, do something different. The other one that I experience is sitting with the results. That is very hard because sometimes you question it. Your very educated mind, you question, is this really true? Or I cannot just say, I cannot explain this part for the 20th time in this report. Nanti Cynthia mahase, macam mana lah ini? Oh, there must be a way. Your mind says, there must be a way. I have to get to the bottom of this. I think one of the key things is just sit with that very discomfort, because that is actually trying to tell you something. If you had a problem, right? Something happened and you're really upset. Somebody said something and you're upset. And first thing in your mind is, why that person doesn't get me, right? Maybe that's the key here. Kenapa bini orang, they really don't understand the way I said it or whatever. Some people say, don't overthink lah, never mind lah. You two have different opinions, never mind. Let bygones be bygones. How to bygone be bygone? Baru kemarin kan, masih fresh badak ha, bygone, bukan 10 tahun yang lalu. So, the next day, it comes to you again kan, because you are that kind of person, you just want to get to the bottom of things. How like this? How to make sense of it? The third day, by the third day, if you're still struggling with that, I suggest you sit with the results of your experience, of that knowledge, trying to create something different inside you. It's either you trying to package it according to that Western mind, or you're trying to find another knowledge to cohere with the result of what happened. And then when you sit with it, you go, oh, that person was describing me as a small I indigenous, whereas I thought I was big I, capital I, the indigenous. Then you go, oh, okay, I can live with that. Oh, bukan salah dia, bukan salah saya juga. It's just how it is. Oh, okay. And then that's fine. And then the next day, it doesn't occur again. But only if you're willing to sit with that very uncomfortable. Someone has sort of langgar kau punya world lah, sudah clash. Okay, how about experience as well? Mesti ka mo label what kind of experience it is. Especially with elders too, when you talk to them and they're giving something, you have a notebook out, you have a recorder out. Do you really have to say, this was a meeting with si Anu, begitu, how long it took, and so on? Could it be more like an experience where it was not a meeting, it was a sharing, but it was also giving you a tip, or there was a secret in there, and then you can say, I will not share this, I will not write this down. But if you saw it as a meeting, that means you want to achieve something, at the outcome, you need to end it, you need to conclude it, you need to be the one to package that knowledge. And I suppose what I'm saying here is there are different ways of knowing, especially with older people is, kasi biar siya jarang cakap, isti sinampu ka, wow, thank you, from B and L. I'm abbreviating everybody's name. Setau sudah, if I think C, K, and L, I have a really nice group di Hawaii called CK, C and K, Cecilio and Capono. So I will remember. Thank you. The other one is, this especially happens in the language of our reports and all that. Apa effect dia, apa impact dia, right? High visibility. How many thousands? How many years? How many communities? All of this, all of that. But we didn't talk about how many lives did we change, kan? And that's so much harder to grasp. If the Western mind had educated us to change lives, would they be in a place like that today? Kan? If we had, let's Ubuntuify everything, ya dalai ni kan. But it is always, what's the effect? You know, how do you measure this? How do you scale it? Dollars, acreage. What is it? How many metric ton? Padi kau ni kali. When you blend this breed and that breed, apa itu? How many tons can we do? Will people survive? Food security, blah, blah, blah. But really, did we change lives in the process? The people who joined the project, did they get changes? So I think that's the one we can't measure. It's so profound, that whole person. How do you measure somebody's life who has changed, not only for the better for themselves, but their own children got an education? The mother who was uneducated became educated going through a program. And the child who looked at the mother, who idolized the mother, that's the role model, their lives change. They then become the second generation trainer or teacher. And then the third generation is also following. That is so invaluable. How to capture that story? from which lens and from which angle do we start? Like the montage starts with what, Nadira? Changing lives or something different. Okay, here's something that I try to make my students like, but they never get it. I don't really like ice cream, but I do, but I don't. I shouldn't. But I always thought, hey, this is a very easy thing to understand, but they don't like that. Now I have changed it to apples and oranges. But this is one way to understand like methodology. Let's say we want to talk about ice cream lah kan. You want to sell ice cream or something. And then this is the flavor that you personally like. What's it? Strawberry. Will be your epistemological point of view. Your knowledge starts from here. And this particular knowledge is the one that you want to transfer to others. So you say, okay lah, let me study it two ways because I'm a academic. So one is your very quantitative. I will take many specimens from 10 factories and I will check which one is good quality, whatever, with fat, solids, milk, whatever. And then the other one says, well, you'll never get anywhere because you're not asking people, you're just talking to your machines, kan? So let me do a survey, a qualitative survey. I will ask people, I'll go around, I'll let them taste. Sedap, suka. And then I found out, hey, it's not just strawberry lah, chocolate lah, fruit lah, vanilla lah, others. Kan? So then they will go, oh, okay, now we understand our body of knowledge here is very much more complex than just sticking an ice cream in front of people. Then you have that ice cream. Can you guess what flavor is that? Huh? Choco. Black sesame. Ni semua pergi kedai Korean ni kan? Black sesame. Charcoal. Have you ever had charcoal ice cream? Really? What do you think? Can you guess?
Yeah.
Yam. Okay, hang on. On the screen, it's gray black. So yam, not yam. Not blueberry already here. Fruit. No, nobody. Banana, blue, gray.
When banana goes off, it becomes like color.
I do not wish banana ice cream from the off menu. Okay, that came from this shop called Mushu in Canada, and this is squid ink ice cream. Did you win? Okay, you must share your fruit with us because we are one with you. You won. Okay, it's squid ink. Have you ever tried squid ink? Oh, okay. Do you know how to make ice cream? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, can you make for us squid ink? You don't wanna try?
No. Why do people? What's the taste like?
I have no
Maybe I
idea.
have to survey again.
Well, it's not it's just an example. It's not continuing on from that. But if it were, this is the point I'm trying to make, is that if it were, we would have come across a body of knowledge that's totally not from the colonial point of view.
Right.
Yeah, this would be like, apa ini? Squid ink. How do we deal with this? But it appeals to people. I've had lobster ice cream when it was cheap. Another story. Now, if I go there, malalut nanti. Okay. But you know, it has that salty sweet. I am imagining salty sweet. Some people go for that. Lala punya muka change. Never mind. Okay. The other point I'm trying to make is when I was researching this ice cream, this particular store is actually very vocal about anti-colonial. And we won't talk about how people are angry with after the Queen's death and wanting to celebrate that, right? There's all those forms of movements. But it's interesting how an ice cream store can give a message to be at one, even though they may not have that knowledge, right? But they can definitely empathize and signify that through the ice cream. And it's nothing to do with indigenous people. I think the squid ink, but maybe indigenous to a certain fisher group in that area. Canada kan banyak fishing community there. this is more into methodology. Just now I talk about experiencing, using your whole body as a tool, and then to sit with results that you may not really like or unsure of. But we hear this a lot in other indigenous communities, or indigenous communities per se. In Hawaii, we had talk story. Aboriginal Australia, we have having a yarn. A yarn. If some of you can imagine the English talking to ladies talking, and one is knitting. Yeah, and the person said, "Oh, can you help me? I need just to make a loop with my yarns all over the place, right?" So as the other person's holding your yarn and they're trying to make a ball again, you need to talk, or else that time will go very slow. So you better enjoy. Oh, by the way, how's the weather in that part of the world? So you're having a yarn, basically. I'm thinking that's where it comes from. In Sabah, it's kupi-kupi dulu. I love this so much. And I didn't realize that I was doing this even in Canberra. Anybody who says, are you free for coffee? Yes! Yes, I'm like, yes, let me out from my office. Because that's what we live for. We want to relate with others, kan? Here, when I say, hey, let's go pick a dulu, people are more often to say, oh, yeah, sure, one of these days, yeah, why not? We just, pen it down, find a date, and so on. But it's not spontaneous. But I think this is the best way to get information and to talk about your work or your research and so on. The best advice I got from my supervisor, professor, is, I said, how am I going to collect data from all these people? Easy. Have food with them. Just eat and then it will all come out. Yeah. And I go, really? Yes. So I did that, right? Well, I sat down one time for 5 hours straight. I said, I don't think this, I should really take it, literally. People can talk to no end. Okay, so I think, lastly for me, Laya, it's been very deep trying to decolonize my own knowledge and taking on other knowledges. It takes time to explore, and I can't, that's the part where, unlike a Western frame, how many years for undergraduate degree? 3, 4, masters, 2, PhD, how many? I think this is forever. It may be an instant, right? One day, you get this profound understanding of something. May take, I don't know, 2 rounds of alcohol. I don't know. 2 months, 2 years. How do you quantify? But I think you have to be wise to know when you can feel it. It's like what someone said to me. How do you know when you've got enough data? It's when you hear the ring of truth. And I said, my goodness, that's the most heuristic thing I've ever heard. Please explain. I'm gonna die. I'm going to feel soon. What is this ring of truth? She said, every time you ask a person a question, do you like squid ink ice cream? What do you think if we put squid ink into ice cream, make a new flavor? Oh, sedap macam takut lah mau makan, geli mau muntah. Then you ask another person, you keep asking, and everyone says something similar. So it's like the ring, the bell is louder and louder and louder. That's when you know you can stop, she said to me. And I just thought, okay, good. But those are the things I appreciated a lot in my life, getting tips and advice like that. Definitely, one thing is you will change. You will change. And then people will say, where do you belong? You don't really, bukan macam orang kita, are you Malaysian? Are you Sabahan? They even go to that extent. They think you have been overseas. Okay, you have been overseas. You've come back. You've explored. But here too, you're exploring. You are opening up. So there's something different or magical about you, and people seem to like that, I think. One person said to me, why don't you look for a job as a liaison officer? I think we need somebody like you who can talk to finance, the technical, to the bosses, to the this, to the that. And I said, really, is there a job like that? Yeah, that's in demand right now. I go, okay, that's my next job. Okay, last but not least, here's, I think, another concept like Ubuntu that you have come across. And this is the part. How do you explain this? Right? And I think this should be the way to understand knowledge. If we have our kids and say, kids, ikigai. And they go, what? What ikigai? And after you talk to them and they all go out and they tell their parents, ikigai. Oh, wow, you've changed lives. There's something. This ikigai, okay. Some of you know ikigai better than me. I better shut up. Who is so into ikigai, has read the whole book or 3 books on ikigai? Siapa tu? Juliet? You? Oh, no. Who? Noel. Noel. No, not at all.
You don't even know what it means. I don't even know what it means.
Oh, I am very surface level too. Okay. Let's all surface together. Okay. Ikigai, when I first heard, and I didn't explore too deeply, but because, it comes from our part of the world, so I just fall in love lah. Had enough, a lot of Western knowledge to that. It seems to be that it's a concept, and the only way to express is that finding happiness within yourself is ikigai, which means you have sort of balance everything about yourself, what you need to do in order to survive. Yeah. What you need to do to Ubuntu fight to do to others, because it'll come back to you, your mission and what you're good at and so on. So I go, this is nice, because this is something I then quickly send to my students when they say, I don't know how to apply for a job. Ikigai. Kau tinggal dulu niya, then we can chat. Something like that. It opens up discussion. Then we try to look for knowledge. And the Japanese seem to be like a fountain of truths. Kan? Banyak dia punya knowledge because they don't actually pander to the West at a certain time frame. Kan? Or if they did, they were late, so they had more. And then the rest of us. So ikigai, you were trying to look, but this is the easier one. It just means having a reason for being, that happiness. And finding requires a deep and often lengthy search of self. Such a search is regarded as being important because it brings satisfaction and meaning to life. So I think that's all from me, but happy to take questions of all kinds. Like I said, there's no conclusion. I decolonized my PowerPoint, but did not very well. Still can practice. Yeah.
How does one turn knowledge into active wisdom? So once you've got that knowledge, you've got the ikigai. How does one move forward from there?
Oh, right. Like to share it for the sharing purpose.
Yeah.
Or for yourself.
Or for any purpose. Because I don't, yeah.
Yeah. I would look, I suppose I can only speak from my own experience, right? Yeah. I would say how I can build on it. I think firstly, because I'm a sharer, I want to like share this thing, right? Even the thoughts and all that I'm sharing with you. I can't say, Wendell can maybe say this, but have I shared this to anyone else like this? I don't think so. I was also debating, I told Natasha, I said, I used a very scientific way. Is this a culturally safe workshop? Have you already made sure for the cultural safety protocols? I could come off as very indigenous, and then how would you? So we had a conversation. But there is a sense where you should build on your knowledge. You can call it a stream of consciousness. But when do you tap into that stream and you try to extract something meaningful, bright for yourself?
Practical as well.
Practical is one. Applicable, yeah. A lot of, let's say, indigenous stuff, consciousness is not applied like the way we see application is. Like, if we extract that, then how do we manifest it? And how does it return a kind of sensory feedback to us. Sometimes it's just put out into the air, in the universe, and then you wait for it to come back to you. It sounds very hokey pokey to some people, but it is that karmic kind of consciousness. I was on a bus with indigenous people, practitioners, World Indigenous Peoples Conference in Education in Waikato years ago, and I was in a bus with them, and I was just, really bogged down. Like, here I am, an activist, and they're doing so much better. The Maori, the Aboriginal people. I mean, they went through something quite bad, even worse than people in Sabah went through, right? And I'm thinking, how did they go over, get past some of that? And then why our people here are very open? We're such an open society. We take on so many other forms of consciousness and knowledges. And how do we? So there's this lady, she's Aboriginal and educated, and I was just blah, 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 blah. And then she said to me, don't worry, she said, because every generation would experience the knowledge, the truths, and it's already in the consciousness. When the generation that is or was supposed to do something passes on, it remains there and will pop up again. This is what she said. I cross-referenced that with a story from a Sami lady from Norway, Sami. And she told me that she grew up in the bush, in a compound, kampong, and they were told by the government to cook outdoors. Like with fire pits and so on, because that was the touristy thing that the government wanted. Everyone else in the 70s already had a modern kitchen oven and everything. So she came from that generation, and she said we threw away or put aside all our knowledge, experience, and so on. One day she found herself getting sucked into this indigenous realm more and more, like exploring all that other kinds of knowledges. One day she joined a singing competition. She's a good singer. And then she started yodeling. Yodeling, I don't know, anybody a good singer here? Oh, very good singer. But they call it yoiking in their language, yoiking. And she started yoiking, singing and then throwing in the yoiks, I think it's called. And then her father was in the audience, and after that his face changed. And he came to her and said, "Where did you hear that? Where did you hear that?" She said, I don't know, it just came out. That is how we sang back in the days, like the ancestors. This is exactly what we did at Kampang Pulos here. Yeah, and she was yoiking. Do you remember what's her name? I forgot. She was heavily pregnant when she came to Sabah. We brought her out to makan ikan sana kinarot. Yeah, anyway. It was a clandestine operation. She came here as a, activist cat, so yeah. But yeah, I hope that answered a bit. It's there, but these forms of knowledges, they're here, but the Western knowledge, how it's sold to us, we must buy it. We must earn it. We must own it. Yeah, it's never free. But the other forms are always there. It's always, ikigai is for everyone. Ubuntu is also in us somewhere. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say, when you bring up these conflicting systems between the Western understanding and the indigenous understanding, right? Yeah. I think, for me, I think it's more to do with the Western system being more possessed with the hyper-rational idea of sciences.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had their own spiritual traditions as well, like with Augustine, Aquinas, and Dante.
Yeah.
But they've lost that I feel they lost that when they started to worship the gods of sciences, which everything has to be quantified in a certain set, right? Like a certain way. And I think how indigenous knowledge, right, hasn't lost that connection towards something that's primal.
Yeah.
hasn't been supplanted by sciences yet. So, how can we exactly like go to like these Westerners with their ingrained systems of sciences that has made them so obsessed with the objective truth and not a subjective reality, and tell them like, hey, you had these systems before and you've forgotten that completely, and we can show you back how your traditions were at the time back then, your spiritual traditions that you've lost.
Yeah. How can we do that? Oh, if only I knew. How about we change the lives? If we, and I don't mean to put it out there just like that as an answer, but I think we can win by arguments, one argument at a time, right? With the science folks. Days when anthropologists were sailing off to uncharted territories, right? Looking for new people to be found, including us here. They left them alone. The scientists, left them alone, and they quickly built up that industry for themselves, the academic industry for themselves. So when these people came back, they were in the interpretivist academicians. They interpret things based on all their subjective data. What people said, these are all subjective for them. What people said, how can you verify the truth, ring of truth, what I said just now, they'll just laugh at that, right? But I think we can win argument at a time with these people, especially if they can come here and be in this space. Like, how long can they stand being here before they get really uncomfortable? Like I said, they have to sit with the result of their experience. If you bring them to see the paddy that's growing, and they're not quickly, counting things and taking the next flight out, and you're saying, no, we have something else for you. We want to bring you somewhere else. Tapi adalah 4 jam mo jalan. Okay, pa, cantik juga to sungai. Okay, come. And they're trapped. That's when you launch into an argument, softly, slowly, palan. But there's a way, and we don't have to bash it over their heads, I think. I would at least, not my style, to go around bashing over people's heads. Yeah, you choose wisely. Choose wisely. No evidence. Okay. Choose wisely. But I think, Adi, you can. And if you have the gifts, your own gifts of talking, of writing, that's when you use it. Yeah, you do have to use, and you do have to put out the truths out there. But then I remembered, I once went through a coaching clinic. I don't know what you call it. Well, I won a prize. Okay, the prize was, I actually supposed to win number 3, but I got number 4. Okay, I still won a prize, which is 1 whole weekend with an acting coach. Yeah, I thought that was better than having a big book, kan? So, acting coach with free food, and we were like walking in the gym and experience your body and breathe, deep breathing and blah, blah, blah. And then 1, 2, 3 in the camera. 3-minute thesis. My thesis is about blah, 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 and do that again, So, and the coach said to me, the acting coach said to me, she said, Trixie, always remember this, your voice may be soft, but therefore make your message sharp. So win that argument, I think, but you have to really come in it like a slicing that sashimi. That's that slice that, that whole, it can crumble in front of them because they don't have much to work on, just that one component of knowledge, whereas we have already been trained Western, and then we have more to work with. Yeah.